Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of News Today. Today, we are discussing the news items for 9th of July. So, we have a couple of important things which have happened, and we're going to go into the stories behind all those events. Let's start by taking a look at what are the main events, the main news. So we will be talking about the Madras and Delhi High Court's ruling on phone tapping. Then we have a discussion on rare earth element reserves. So India holds the 8% of the world's rare earth element reserves. So we look into that. Then you have a new set of rules for hazardous and other waste management and trans-boundary movement amendment rules 2025. So we're going to talk about what this particular rules are going to be covering, what specific wastes are they talking about. Then you have India and Brazil. They have signed some key pacts. Our Prime Minister was in Brazil. So some key agreements were laid out. So we'll discuss that. And the last main news here is Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey revealed information about Bluetooth messaging app. So we'll be able to send messages through Bluetooth by a special app, which is BitChat. Along with this, there are some quick updates also which are in news. So we will be mentioning the National Commission for Scheduled Castes performance assessment review and analysis of knowledge for holistic development and Rashtriya Sarvekhan, or this is called Parak RS. So this is for assessment of how learning outcomes are coming out of our schools. Then you have carbon border adjustment mechanism. Then carrying capacity. If you've been regularly reading the news today, I'm sure you know that in this last section of also in news, you get some special key terms which give you a lot of understanding of various issues. So we focus on a lot of such terms, like you have carrying capacity, then you have the khari camel, then you have the Japanica rice. After that, Indian Telecom Services yearly performance indicators. Then you have the bind scheme. And one place of in news which we're going to be discussing is Namibia. So one by one, we'll tackle all of this. The first is on phone tapping. I'm sure you all know what phone tapping is. When you're making a conversation and somebody is intercepting that conversation, somebody is listening to that conversation, that is phone tapping. Now, phone tapping as a exercise has been done for surveillance. It's been around for so many years. Different police agencies, government agencies do that. But there are some underlying issues in this, and issues of a person's own privacy, and that is where sometimes it goes into litigation. So we have two verdicts which have recently come up on this. So you have the Madras and the Delhi High Court. Both of them are ruling on phone tapping. So we will see what are their viewpoints. It will give you a very balanced idea on the issue, that what can justify phone tapping and how it can be a problem. Because these rulings have been come by closer to each other, so it is a very right situation to be comparing what is happening. Now you have the rulings of Madras High Court and the Delhi High Court. The Madras High Court, what they have said is, they've said that telephone tapping constitutes a violation to the right of privacy under the fundamental right of Article 21. So Article 21, you know, it's very important fundamental right. This is the right to life and personal liberty, which then can cover many aspects of a person's life. And one aspect could be of privacy, that you should be entitled to your privacy. You should be entitled to having your own space, to have freedom of speech, to make your own comments and conversation. So the Madras High Court says if somebody is tapping your phone, that is a violation to this right of privacy. The second view is of the Delhi High Court, where Delhi High Court has upheld that the prevention to incitement for committing a crime is one of the legal grounds on which it could be allowed, the phone tapping could be allowed. So what Delhi High Court is trying to say here is that if there is a person who is trying to commit a crime, okay, somebody is trying to commit a crime, it is then a good legal ground to prevent that crime from happening. The government can intervene, the government can restore to phone tapping, okay, if it meets those criterias. Now, the important thing is that what would these criterias, what would be actually the legal grounds? Most of the times that is decided by the court, that is actually interpreted by the court, but we have a number of laws and legislations which are in place. So these are a few things which are there. The first one is the Telecommunication Procedures and Safeguards for Lawful Interpretation of Messages, Rules of 2024. Okay, so you have a Telecommunication Act of 2023. Okay, this Telecommunication Act, this has a set of rules which it has laid out, and according to this, it also lays down the procedure and due process for which the government can intercept a message. Okay, so it talks about how that whole thing, if the government wants to intercept any message, how that can be done, what are the conditions under which that can be done. So it lays out the whole procedure, right? This is the latest law which is there. We have a few older laws also, like you had the Information Technology Act of 2000, which is about interception of WhatsApp messages, email messages, basically the part of your text messages. The phone message is the voice call, and this is now also, because this is this IT Act which is there, it's also covering the text message and their interpretation. Other than this, there's an older law. There is a British time colonial law which is there, which had detailed a lot of things. So this was the Indian Telegraph Act 1885, which is saying that this can be used for tapping voice calls. It has authorized that the state can do it, the central government can do it, on the occurrence of any public emergency or in the interest of public safety. Okay, so this is a special section. Whenever this clause of phone tapping is discussed, this section 5 subpart 2 is always mentioned. This is the section of the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. Of course, it's an older act, but it has been updated and it has been referred to in the current situation also. I'll mention one very significant case on this line, because when courts discuss a particular issue, they always look at precedent. So there is one very solid precedent which has laid down how this whole thing will work. So you have the People's Union for Civil Liberties, PUCL versus Union of India. This is a 1997 case. And in this, that section which talks about public emergency, in which that surveillance or phone tapping could be used, so it has upheld that it is constitutionally valid. It is in line with our constitutional situation, this section 5, subpart 2. Then, along with this, when the judgment came, there was a detail of how the whole procedure will be done. If it has to be done, they said that it can only be issued by the Home Secretary. States can do it, center can do it, that's according to the Telegraph Act. But in that also you need the highest official, you need the Home Secretary, which is going to give the orders for doing it. And the order is only valid for 2 months. Okay, if you have been given permission to tap somebody's phone, it's not for eternity. It is, once the order is given, it will be valid for 2 months. So these were the conditions which were given. Okay, in the current scenario, the cases which, both these courts they discuss, these cases were, you can say, almost similar, but looked at because there was economic issues in both of them. The case with the Madras High Court was about a person trying to bribe an official so that he could save some money, he could save some tax. He wanted to do a transaction without coming into the legal format. And the Madras High Court said that this is a mere act of tax evasion. Somebody is trying to evade tax. That is the purpose of the bribe. So that does not really qualify to be something like a public emergency. So because of that, they quashed it. They said that no, this cannot be done. This is not a public emergency. Somebody is trying to save tax. You cannot tap his phone. In the Delhi High Court's case, there was a person who was trying to get a contract, and for that, again, he was trying to offer a bribe. But the amount or the size of the contract was very, very huge. It was 2,000 crores, more than that. So in that, the court said that this is now a bigger set of events have played out in this, and this is an act of corruption, which is a major issue, and it would come under that domain of a major public event or a public crisis situation. So because of that, they upheld that in this case, it should be allowed. You can get questions on an idea like this in your mains exam, and you should have an idea about both sides so that you can write the question from any angle, and you should have arguments on both sides to back yours. So in this particular news, it will really be helpful in that. Going to the next news now. This is about the rare earth elements. Okay, so we have some rare earth elements, and India holds 8% of the world's rare earth elements. So this is a pie chart which explains how the distribution of the world's reserves of rare earth elements are there. So you can see almost half of it is with China, 49%. Then you have Brazil, and after that you have India. So India at 8% is having the third largest reserves. Then you have Australia, Russia, and the rest of the world has 10%. Okay. The significant thing to understand when you talk about rare earth elements, it's not that they are rare in the earth. It's not that they are available in lesser amount, but mining these elements is very, very difficult. They're present in very small amount in a lot of ores. Okay, all kinds of ores, all kind of natural resources, metal resources, whenever we have those, they'll have some rare earth element. So in terms of reserves or in terms of how much the earth has them, they are not less. They are not rare in that sense. But the rarity comes from the fact that they are very difficult to mine. Out of a very large chunk, you'll get a very little amount of rare earth elements. And that is what makes it very difficult to do this whole exercise. That is why India particularly, even when it has such high reserves, right? It's the third largest country to have rare earth elements. Its production is very, very low. In India, if we talk about how the mining is going to be there, first let's look at where it is found in India. So you have the monzite sands. Monzite sands are found in a lot of coastal states in India, like you have Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa. And these sands are also known for thorium. Thorium is also extracted from these sands. Now, these coastal states have these sands, and these sands have your rare earth elements. But the problem is, one I've already told you, the amount in which they are present, that's very small, so makes their mining very difficult. The other thing is the place where it is. Coastal areas are usually coming under a lot of regulation, a lot of protection. So mining in coastal areas is not very easy. You need a lot of clearances, you need environmental clearances, you need to make sure that the whole exercise is sustainable. So all this kind of makes it economically less viable, and that is why we are not mining a lot of these rare earth elements. India currently, if we look at the statistics, it mines only 1% of the world's rare earth elements. These rare earth elements, they are very significant considering how digital the world is becoming. In most of your digital device, some form of a rare earth element is used. Everywhere where there is a battery, there's some use of some of these digital elements, and because of that, there is a growing demand in the world. Now, India has visualized this opportunity, something which this report has also highlighted, and in future it'll probably try to overcome these problems. Let's look at what are the problems. First one is the complex mining process. Okay, it is a specialized process. It needs a lot of expertise, and there is also radioactivity involved. Like thorium is one thing, but other than thorium, there are many other radioactive substances also which are there in these reserves. So while you are mining them, you have to be very, very careful. There are a lot of safeguards which will go into it. There can be accidents which can be lethal. So that makes it very complex, very technique sensitive, and as a result, of course, very expensive procedure. Further, you have an incomplete industrial value chain. Okay, what is happening in India currently is we know how to do mining. So we are mining it. We're also refining it. Okay, refining means you're purifying it and you're finally getting what you want. But we don't have a system of production which is still in place. So when I say the chain is incomplete, we don't really have the factory set up to produce goods out of this. Right? Of course, we can export it, we can sell it somewhere, but it would really expedite the whole process if that production center, like all those things, like let's say magnets which are made, if we could have that at those mining sites around that, if we develop clusters around it, that would really make it more viable. Because then you don't have to transport it to other places, then you don't have to export it. You can use it there and then, which is what is currently missing. So that last leg, or where this is going to be used, that's not there. So that is your incomplete industrial value chain. After that, again, I've already mentioned this. So you have coastal regulation zones. In most of these areas, these are coastal states, so there are norms which are very strict, which restrict a lot of this mining. Mining is specifically one activity which is not allowed easily because it leads to a lot of degradation. So that's another problem. Then, when we talk about the rare earth elements, within that, there is a category called heavy rare earth elements. Okay, these are what would go into your magnets or batteries, or I'll say your electric vehicles. They will be using the heavy earth elements, and they are further rarer. Light earth elements are still available. This light and dark is the weight of the element basically, but heavy earth elements, they are less common and they are not available in extractable quantities. So whatever India's reserves are, within that also the heavy earth elements, which are, because they are less, everywhere in the world they are found in less amount, so that makes them very critical, and that makes anybody who is mining them or refining them or selling them, that will become a very, very profitable exercise, because this is in high demand in the world, this is rare in the world, and this becomes a very critical resource. And in Indian resources, this is not in extractable quantities. We are not in a position to extract it. So that also kind of limits the scale or the scope of the program. Okay. As compared to this, if you look at China, China is actually doing very well. 90% of the world's rare earth elements, they've set up such a robust system that 90% of the refining of these actually takes place in China. Okay, so the lessons to be learned with China, of course, they have the maximum resources, but they're utilizing that in a very good way, something which India should replicate, considering this is a very critical resource. Next, we are going to talk about waste management. So you have the National Authorities of Hazardous and Other Waste Management and Transboundary Movement Amendment Rules 2025, right? So this is a big name, no? Without getting scared of the name, we'll try and understand the essence of it, what it is talking about, so that you can connect that what are these new rules, what are they covering, and what are the specific wastes which they are talking about. See, in the environment section, this idea of waste management is very, very significant. This is what is one of the biggest problems of the environment today. And when we talk about how this management has to be done, there's this concept of a circular economy. Okay, before I take you to the circular economy, think about what a linear economy would look like, just in a very simplified way. So you have raw material. Okay. So this raw material changes into a product. People use that product and then it ends up in the waste. Okay. So ये एक simple chain system हो गया. In a better format, in a better case in the economy, we should have a complete circle. Things should not just end up in waste. So here again, raw material. Then you talk about having a sustainable design, a design which can be used longer, which does not in itself produce a lot of waste. Then you have production, then distribution, you sell it, you sell it into different parts. Then you have consumption. And in consumption also, there should be reuse, there should be repair. It should not be something which should be used once and should be thrown out. So you reuse, you repair. And after that, this should not be the end. Once a product is not working or not viable, then that should not be the end of it. But it should be something like that. There should be collection. The residual waste should be picked up. There should be waste management so that these waste can be broken down and ultimately brought back into raw materials to design the same thing or to design something else. When you complete this chain, that is what is circular economy. And all these different rules which are coming in, they are talking about this idea that we should be having plans which are for the circular economy. And the present specific amendment rules which are there, they've been brought up by the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, right? This is the main ministry which is involved with all kind of environmental use. And they are talking about extended producer responsibility framework for scrap of non-ferrous metals. So these two terms you need to understand. Extended producer responsibility kya hai? So you had this idea that whoever is producing a product, that person should also be responsible for its waste management. Okay, if I am making an electronic device, the scrap of that or how that's going to be recycled or broken down, that is also my responsibility. That's the basic idea, right? If I am, let's say, using some form of metal, I'm selling it to the consumer, it is my responsibility that I also take it back. That's the idea of extended producer responsibility. The person who produces will also buy it back, will also take it back, will also recycle and find ways, set up plans to reuse. And in this particular case, in this particular amendment, this is for non-ferrous metal. I'm sure you understand the word ferrous is for iron. So we are talking here about specifically the metals other than iron, which means you have aluminium, copper, zinc, and all other forms of alloys. So they are the ones which are the focus of these new rules, and they have to be incorporated and brought back, which is going to be a responsibility of the producer. What are the specific features here? So there's a target that every producer shall be responsible for recycling targets. They'll be given, every producer will be told that this is your recycling target. Now they have actually worked it out on a gradation that they'll start with 10%. That first, whatever you produce, 10% of it you should bring back. So if you produce 100 units, you bring back at least 10 units, you recycle it. And then gradually, the idea is at least it'll grow on to 75%. So till 75% of it, they're going to bring out everything. They're going to bring back everything, and that will be the target which they have to meet. For that, the agency which will do the certification, which will check all this, is going to be your Central Pollution Control Board. So they will be issuing extended producer responsibility certificates. So they're going to be making an extended portal, a detailed portal for that, on which companies can register, and then whatever developments are taking place, whatever they are picking up, that they can mention, and accordingly they're going to be given certificates, and those valid certificates will be needed for those companies, for those manufacturers, for the producers to work. That's the idea. Extended producer responsibility is a very significant concept anywhere in waste management. You talk about electronic waste or any other kinds of waste also. That's a very, very relevant idea, which currently is a part of many different Indian laws. After this, you have India-Brazil relationship. So our Prime Minister was on a 5-nation visit. He was in Brazil, and Brazil as such is a very close partner of India in many different organizations, like you have BRICS, you have even international organizations like UN. These are the two developing countries of the world which are trying to ask for greater share. There is this idea of the growth of the global south also, or the southern countries, that means other than the America and Europe. They are trying to get more clout, and because of that, this personal engagement of India and Brazil, this is very significant. They're trying to come together on various areas, and they have signed many key agreements. These are a few agreements which they have signed. Now, from the perspective of the exam, while you're preparing for the exam, of course, you need to know the historical relationship. You need to know the association of India and Brazil. And in terms of these agreements, try and remember the themes. What is the theme on which this agreement is based? Okay, so you have the first one, agreement on cooperation in combating international terrorism and transnational organized crime. So crime, organized crime and terrorism, right? That's the first thing. Then you have a memorandum on the exchange of large-scale digital solutions to support digital transformation. So the second theme is digital transformation. You know, this theme of digitization is very significant for India. So it is trying to reach out to Brazil also, and on that front. Then you have a memorandum of understanding between Brazil's Embrapa. So this is Brazil's Agricultural Research Institution and Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So agriculture is very significant, a very big activity for India. The same is for Brazil. So two countries usually come together in areas which are key to them, which are significant to them. And agriculture, of course, is one of those. And you have MOU on intellectual property, and also announced the establishment of ministerial level mechanism to monitor trade. So you have trade, commerce, investment, and intellectual properties. So on that also agreement has been raised. There are already existing mechanisms to talk about defense and technology initiatives, but these are the things which were highlighted in this particular visit of the Prime Minister. Going further, you have bit chat. Okay, a new way of communication which is going to play out. So this is Twitter's co-founder, Jack Dorsey. So Jack Dorsey founded Twitter, but after it was sold to Elon Musk, he exited from the company, and now he's working on something new. This is, he has revealed information about Bluetooth messaging app and the initial idea, it's going to be called bid chat. So he's going to be he's developing something which will use Bluetooth as a means of delivering messages. The power this holds, or the significance of this whole thing, is in the fact that there is going to be no need of the internet. This is going to be an offline mode. Okay, so this was a need which was felt, that there are many times where internet connectivity is not there. Okay, and if internet connectivity is not there, if you're not able to go online, then this communication, this bid chat could really bridge in that gap. How it will work? It creates a Bluetooth low energy mesh network. So Bluetooth, is available in so many devices. Almost all digital devices have a Bluetooth. So those devices will be connected each other through Bluetooth, and with this, they'll be able to pass on messages. In this, the interesting thing is there's no centralized server. There is no phone network. There is no place where your data is going to be stored. There's going to be no need for data storage here. Okay, because it's not like all signals are going to a place and then they are being transmitted. I'll show you this diagram which explains how the whole thing works. Okay, so see, if this is the publisher, okay, this is the initial device which is supposed to send messages. This will send Bluetooth messages to different devices, and they'll all be connected. All these, once they start transmitting signal, they're going to be called nodes in this system. Okay, so this is a mesh networking system. I'm sure you know this about Bluetooth because everybody has used Bluetooth, that Bluetooth has a limitation of range, like roughly around 30 meters. That's how far your Bluetooth signal will go. So devices will have to be arranged in a network. Okay, that's how from one place to the other, the signal is going to be reached. And the signal or the data or the information, it's extremely encrypted. It's end-to-end encryption. No, encryption means it is in a hidden format. It cannot be read in between. It cannot be taken away in between. Like the phone tapping, which is not encrypted. Anybody can listen to that. Here, this is encrypted. Nobody can intercept the signal in between. And there's no need for data storage. These days, there's a lot of discussion about how the data of everything which you browse or when you're using the internet, that's collected and that is used in different forms. Here, there is no data being stored anywhere. That also means that it'll be using very little energy. It'll be overall a process which will use very little power. It'll be a low power process. And without the need for any central storage system, it might also end up being a very cheaper way. And the biggest advantage is that it'll be able to work offline. You don't need internet connectivity with this. The disadvantage also would be there. If you think about it, the range is a problem. You need a lot of networks to be connected here. And of course, the data speed or the transferring of information, that will be a little slow. Sending bigger videos or larger content will be a problem, at least what we can think of at the current stage of where this technology is. Maybe they find out a way to do it better, but as of now, when transmission is happening through Bluetooth, that's what we can think of. But in any case, it holds significance. It is something very new and something which can help the need of sending in information which is highly secret, sending in data which you don't want to be stored anywhere. With this, we come to our place in news for the day. So this is an African country, Namibia. You can see here on the map. See, places, whenever you have to study any place, whenever you're looking at any place, it's important that you look it on the map. Mapping as such is a part of course, your syllabus, but otherwise also, I cannot emphasize this enough. Whenever you come across a place, you need the map. For Namibia, one thing very specific is that it's a coastal country. Okay, you should know the neighbors. You have South Africa, you have Botswana, you have Angola. So all these countries are connected. And the reason this has been in news is because your Indian Prime Minister is visiting here. Okay, the Indian Prime Minister will be going to Namibia, and this is happening after almost 30 years. Okay, we've been on cordial terms, but it's after 30 years that that an Indian Prime Minister is visiting. So it's a big politically strategic move as such in the scenario where we are talking about that integration or alliances, greater alliances with Africa. Now, there are some quick updates, some other news which we need to know about. Let's see what's happening with them. So first is about the National Commission for Scheduled Caste. So earlier, there was a combined commission for scheduled castes and for scheduled tribes. For both of them, there was a common commission, but under the Constitution's 89th Amendment Act 2023, both of these commissions became separate. So you had a National Commission for Scheduled Castes, and then you also have a National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. So National Commission for Scheduled Castes comes under Article 338. The job of this commission is to look at the state of the welfare aspects of the government schemes or development of scheduled castes. That's a dedicated area, and any complaints which they get from all over the country. There are any issues against scheduled castes. So those complaints are also dealt with this commission. Okay, and there are some cases, some aspects in which it can act as a civil court also in that. So it is supposed to compile what all is happening, and it is supposed to give suggestions that what other things can be done, and that whole report it compiles and it gives this to the president. That's the reason why it's been in news. It has recently submitted its report to the president. Now you have Parak RS. So this is Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development, Rashtriya Sarvekshan. Okay, so basically it is going to be for performance assessment of students, how the students in different parts of the country, how they are performing, and they've selected a few areas where they would be tested, and accordingly different states will be ranked according to their performing outcomes. So you have language and mathematics for grades 3, 6 and 9. Okay, then the world around us, that's the topic for classes 6th, 3rd and 6th standard, and then science and sociology for class 9th. Okay, this is kind of a quantifiable way of assessing if the kind of education which is being provided, especially in public institutions, how are the outcomes in that, how is this learning pattern, and the disparities which come out of this, like different performances in different states, that can further give an opportunity to update the current techniques. Okay, next is carbon border adjustment mechanism. So this is a latest tool which actually India, Brazil and other countries are opposing. So what the European Union is doing is they're putting in a special tax on goods which are coming from outside. This is the carbon border tax. The tax they are putting on carbon intensive goods. Now understand this term first. What is a carbon intensive good? So any good which is basically, you can say, using some fossil fuels as energy, or is, you can say, in some way creating carbon emissions. Any product whose production is releasing carbon becomes a carbon intensive goods. If carbon emissions were involved in its production, like think of steel. Okay, steel production using coal. that uses carbon. Think of agricultural activity or even things like beef production. That whole thing releases a lot of carbon emission. So that would be a carbon intensive activity. So what EU is saying is anything which is carbon intensive, if you sell it in our countries, if you sell it in the European Union, we're going to put in a special tax which is going to be called carbon border tax. The idea is there are two basic aspects to this, okay, the why they are doing it. First reason is, of course, this can be a good way of popularizing the use of alternate forms of energy or non-carbon intensive sectors or use of less carbon emission activities, so that other countries also, like EU is making a lot of effort to do that on their own end, reduce carbon emissions. They feel that if you put a tax like this, it will encourage other non-EU countries also to do this. The second thing is, when the sectors in EU, they are using technologies which don't have carbon emission, like if they're not using, let's say, fossil fuels, let's say they are using wind power, okay, or solar or any other form of energy. This will be much expensive than your fossil fuel. As a source of fuel, energy will be expensive, right? So the products which they are creating in EU, they become very, very expensive as compared to the products which come from outside. So that creates like an unfair advantage to those who are using fossil fuels. So this is also a way of creating a level playing field. So the logic is that we want a level playing field. You produced your goods in a cheaper way. Now you give us a tax so that our goods can compete with you. Another way is your goods are polluting, your goods are damaging to the environment. So we also want to encourage you to do that. The developing countries feel we are not still prepared for that kind of an updation. So if we feel this tax is unfair. So that's the whole story. Next is carrying capacity, another very important concept in the environment. And this, by its name only, I think it should be clear to understand. It basically means how much a resource can handle. This is being discussed in Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand is a hilly state of India. The Himalayas are a very favorable site for tourism activity. So a lot of tourists come here. So for that, a lot of construction is going to be done, hotels and resorts and all those things. The Uttarakhand government is now talking about that before giving permissions for all these activities, we need to think about our carrying capacity. And when that means how much can we accommodate, how much can we break that mountain, because issues of landslides, flooding, all of these have really increased in these hilly states. So because of that, an environmental assessment is very important, so that any development which is taking place, that should be balanced. Now, carrying capacity will be about the amount of resources available in the ecosystem. That's the first point which is considered. How much resources there, how much land is there, all those things. Then what is the size of the population? Okay, you need to know how many people are there, how many people it can accommodate, and the amount of resources which each individual will be consuming. Okay, so you have to match all these parameters. This is the land, this is the people, how much does each person consume, and based on that, because anybody who comes, you'll need food, water, place, space for that, right? So you get an idea of the carrying capacity, and development must be in lines of that. You should not be putting an extra burden on your natural resources. That is the good plan for development in your hilly areas. So this is now your Khari camel, a very special type of camel which can swim. Okay, they are indigenous to India. They're present in Gujarat, and recently they've been in news because they kind of got stuck in a high tide and they had to be rescued because they were finding it difficult to come out of that on their own. And because of that, they have been in news because those videos and photographs of the camels, they were released, and we kind of got to again know and think about them. Okay. Then you have a new variety of rice, Japonica rice. So this is the National Institute of Plant Genome Research, and they have used CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology to increase phosphate uptake in the rice. So see, phosphate here is very important for growth of plants. For growth and development of plants, phosphate is needed. And when we give fertilizers to plants, you give nitrogen, you give phosphorus, you give potassium. Okay, these are the main nutrients which you want to give, which are very, very essential. But in fertilizer form, when you give this phosphate, it's not absorbed very nicely. Okay, it's around 15% or sometimes even less of whatever you give, it is absorbed. Most of it just goes in the runoff, most of it goes waste. So this was a big problem. But how will plants get phosphate? So what they have done is they have now tried to create a new variety where they have edited the genes through gene editing. Gene editing means the genetic structure, the genetic material or the DNA of that plant, you will change it in a way so that you can alter its property. And what property you are trying to alter? You will increase the phosphate uptake of this crop, and that is going to make this rice a better variety. Its growth and development will be better. Okay, so scientists keep coming up with such initiatives so as to improve the overall state of agriculture and ensure greater food security. Next, you have Indian Telecom Service Yearly Performance Indicators. So there's a telecom report, nothing very significant about it. There are details of statistics which are there. Two aspects which I think even without knowing you'll be able to keep in mind. Internet subscribers have increased, telephone subscribers have increased, and they do a detailed analysis on which networks are working, are wired trans communications working better, are more of wireless internet connections are used, all those aspects. Then you have the BIND scheme. So this is Broadcasting Infrastructure and Network Development Scheme. This is the name of the scheme, Broadcasting Infrastructure and Network Development. Now, under this scheme, different initiatives will be taken by for telecommunications. So we're mainly talking about Prasar Bharati here. And what is the recent initiative is, there's going to be an Akashvani Kendra, a Prasar Bharati Kendra, which is going to be established in Ujjain as a part of this BIND scheme. Okay, so that's the reason why it has been in news. So once you have attended this class, you've heard me talk about all the topics. Please go through the news today once on your own also, highlight things which you think are important, and then go to your MCQs. The next step after you've read everything is you will solve the MCQs, you will solve the questions so that you can really retain all that what we have discussed today. And once you've completed that and you want to go further into any news, you have your digital current affairs of Vision IS. You can log on to our website. You can find these digital information. It will give you details of all these news items and a lot of things beyond this also. On that note, thank you and have a nice day.